Okay, welcome to the Consecrated Life Project, where we talk about embracing your mission and living your purpose with faith and confidence. Today, my guest is Wylene Benson. I'm so glad to have you here. I met Wylene, how long has it been? 3 or 4 years ago or something?
At least 3 or 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, through some different conferences and things where we were learning about strengthening our mind and really understanding how things work and how we can tap into the divine principles and the things that God has ordained for us, that we can use these principles to move forward in life and actually change the way that our mind is working to help us to activate that kind of asking ye shall receive principle of when we're really clear on what we want and how we're going to do it, and we allow God to come into that process, then it allows us to move forward faster and to be able to really do what it is that we were put here on the earth to do, and to do it our way. And I love that so much. So thank you for being here. I have appreciated having her in my life and this little ball of light that she is, and everything that I see her do, and her desire to really follow God and to help him and to serve in the way that she's called in her heart to do. So it's been really cool to watch her. She's recently published her book, and I'm excited for you to hear more about that and all the things that she is doing. So thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you. I just want to say too, just a thought that came to me as you were talking. The last interview that I did, I scheduled the interview, got on, and we were just chatting before the interview started, and it was actually a live interview. And she asked me if, she says, I know that you're really Christian and, that you talk about God and stuff. We just want to be, and we want to speak to all audiences. And so can you just not mention God while you're in the interview? And it just totally was like, oh my gosh, like we're going live in 2 minutes and you're just dropping this on me right now. And I just want to say thank you so much for being you, for allowing yourself to be open and share, your beliefs, and also inviting me to be a part of that too. And I just feel like this is just a place where I resonate. So thank you so much.
Oh, yay. I am so glad, because that was my whole thing. I feel like I've met so many awesome people, and in the core of it, they had this, I felt directed by God to take this job, or to do this business, or to homeschool my kids, or to adopt this child, or whatever their process was, they felt guided by God. And I would listen to, a podcast interview or listen to them speak. And in person, they would say, oh my gosh, this is what God did, and this is how it worked. And then in the interview, it would be like one sentence. I said a prayer and I felt guided. And then it's all the rest of the stuff. And I'm like, no, there needs to be a place where we can really open up and share the core of it. Because when we invite God into our space and into our life, everything works out better. And if we're trying to explain to people, hey, this is how I got through my hard stuff, and this is how I got successful, and this is how I did whatever it is that I did in my life, and you leave out that part, people can try all they want, but it's not going to work out the way that they're hoping it to, because that one key point is missing. So thank you for being a person that I want to share that story, because I feel like there are so many of us. So if you're listening and you hear this and it's you, go to the Consecrated Life Project site at consecratedlife.learnlivefly.com and send me a request. Say, hey, let me tell you my story, and let's get yours shared too, because we all need to band together. Life is not meant to be done alone, it's meant to be done together.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you,
So I got a little input into you right there, but go ahead and give us a 2-minute intro. Tell us who you're from, where you're from, where you're from. What does your life look like right now? And what kind of things are you passionate about?
Okay, cool. It's interesting that you said who you're from, because that's actually more accurate probably than where I'm from. I have always, been, I've always been a Christian. I've always, loved studying the gospel and things like that. But I was, the person that I was before was someone who really bought into indoctrinated beliefs and just assuming, that God was a certain way, and that, Christ was in my life for this, he was my savior and, did the atonement and all these things. But I didn't really give myself time to look beyond just what I had been taught. And I think that was probably the biggest key change in becoming the person that I am right now, is I allowed myself to have a personal connection with God, to have a personal relationship with God, and to allow him to teach me through the scriptures. And when I would pray, I would really be open to listening to what he had to share with me. I would definitely ask questions and just kind of plant those seeds in my heart of, can you please just give me a little bit more information about this? But I just allowed myself to get beyond just the normal, religious things, that people talk about. I allowed myself to have a personal relationship with God. So I feel like that's probably was the biggest change to becoming the person that I am right now. And the person that I was before had a heart attack because I was not living a life of purpose. I was living a very surface life. It was a good life. I have a great husband. I've got a good family. I've got, everything on the outside looked good, but on the inside, I feel like my spirit was just trapped because I was just doing a 9-to-5 job. I even, had a time clock that I would clock in the morning, clock in at night when I left. And just, I was just showing up to work every day and then just doing the mom thing and the wife thing and didn't have anything beyond that. So once I started asking, and that's what, and then I had a heart attack. And then I started asking, I started doing a lot of journaling and a lot of reading and just asking, what I felt like I had, it's like the second half of my life was a gift. I had this heart attack when I was 49. And so I felt like, okay, the next 50 years, what does that look like? Who do I want to be in this next 50 years? And that finding that path of purpose for myself is really what opened up how I get to serve other people. I feel like I'm very gifted at helping other people to understand what their path of purpose is. And I even wrote a book called The 7 Gateways that takes you from being in fear to actually living in alignment with your highest self, with your purpose.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you. Give us a story, or the story, if it's one or if it's multiple, of how did you come to find what your mission and purpose was, of like, I really feel like God is calling me to do this. This is why I'm on the planet. This is what I'm here to do. And I trust that you're going to help me with it.
There is one moment, and it kind of just happened. I didn't really ask for it or didn't know, what was going to happen. But I was sitting in someone's living room. We were in sort of like a retreat setting, and we paired up in partners and we asked the question, what do you want? And we just asked the question of each other and just kept asking that question over and over again. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And at first, my answers were very surface, kind of materialistic. And then I started getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and I got super emotional. And I felt like there was some calling that I had, some mission or purpose that I had that was had to do with helping people through addiction. And it's interesting, that was like the starting point. And I don't, promote myself as an addiction coach, but I was an addiction coach for 2 years. And so I definitely can help people with that. But that was the start of me really finding a mission that would allow me to be able to feel like I was living a life of purpose. And so from that moment forward, I started learning about addiction and just, asking God, what do you have for me? What do I need to know about addiction to be able to serve people? And so that was a 2-year journey, and then it moved to something else. But God knew that was what I needed to help me get started.
Beautiful. And I loved how he guides us separately. Like, you'll be like, hey, this is right now. This is what your purpose is. And then he's like, hey, you learned what you need there. Now move here. And now do this. And now do this. And now do this. And so it's really cool to see how he guides us that way. And that's why I'm really careful, like when I do these interviews, to not say, what is your purpose overall, like your whole entire life? It's like, I haven't got there yet. I don't know what else God has for me. I've been listening to Insights from a Prophet's Life, Russell M. Nelson's autobiography that Sherry D wrote. And it's amazing to see how God like prepared him throughout life and taught him how to listen and how to trust him and all these things. It's like one step at a time. And there's no way when he was a kid, busting his dad's alcohol bottles in the basement, he ever thought, I'm going to be the prophet of the church. You know what I mean? And it was like, he couldn't have seen that, but God sees and God knows, and he puts us where we need to be. And that is such a beautiful thing, and I love it.
That's totally true.
There's a point when you hit that point of 100% commitment to, okay, God, I'm in. They always just kind of like do this, and you're like, hey, I'm doing it, but you're kind of like, I'm doing it, but then there's this thing over here I might go to if this one doesn't work, and you know what I mean? Like that moment when you said, okay, no matter how hard it is, no matter what opposition hits me, I know you want me to do this, and I'm in.
Okay, 2 experiences came to mind, and I'm going to share the second one. The first one's actually in my book, so I don't need to share that one. This one is not in the book. It actually happened fairly recently, I would say within the last 8 months. I stepped out on my own about a year and a half ago. I think it was in July that I created my LLC for my own private business. I've been mentoring for, probably, I don't know how many years, 20 years in some capacity. But about a year and a half ago, I actually created my LLC, Ascend with Wylene, and decided that I knew enough, that I was enough, and that I was going to, be my own mentor, that I was going to promote myself. And about 8 months ago, so you can see, I was only in this for just a short period of time, I started questioning. And part of the biggest reason why I was questioning was because my income was really up and down. My husband's disabled, and so he's on a fixed Social Security income. And so the rest of what we need, just for our basic needs, comes from what I do. And my income was really up and down with this new business. And I was putting I was investing a lot into the business to get it off the ground. And I started questioning, and I actually put together my resume and got on a couple of the websites, where you look for jobs, and I set up a couple of interviews. I mean, I went that far. I was going to get a job to get some consistent income. And it was 2 days before the first interview that I was scheduled to have with this company. And it was a mentoring position. It was like a mentoring position in a rehab facility. So it was totally, in my line of expertise, but there was just this gut-wrenching feeling that happened inside of me when I thought of even going to the interview, and realizing that I was choosing to trade my time for money rather than giving my time to fulfilling my purpose and to living in the way that God had guided me to live. And I seriously was like transported to beyond my life when I'm standing in front of God and answering for everything that I did. And I could just hear myself saying, you know what, I would have followed my purpose, but I had to pay the bills. And what a disappointment that would have been. And so in that moment, I ripped up my resume. I called the people that I had scheduled interviews with, and I said, I've decided to take another position. And that other position was to continue building my business and to be strong and to just keep going and have the faith and trust that God would take care of things. And he definitely has. Today, things are completely different. I've launched my book. I actually just, it's in printing right now, the Daily GPS Planner. So I have another book that's going out, and I have 2 programs that are flourishing. It's just, but I think I had to get to that bottom of the barrel moment where I really could see what would happen if I didn't.
That's awesome. Well, good for you. I'm glad that you chose your purpose and you chose to follow God's, because I've had similar experiences and I totally understand what that's like. Okay. What opposition or resistance have you faced and how do you get through it? You can think of an experience that maybe comes up.
I have one experience that just popped in my head, so this must be the one that I get to share. I have a good friend and somebody that I had worked with personally who started bad-mouthing me on Facebook. And, it was on her personal page, so it wasn't, like something that I could like delete or anything like that. And I even had a conversation with her and everything, and it didn't stop. And that was definitely a moment where, first of all, I got to look inside of myself and see, is there any truth to this? Is there anything that I can learn from this that would help me to be a better person? Am I showing up in a way that other people are maybe seeing me this way and just not saying anything or whatever? So it was a really good moment for me to be able to look inside of myself and just feel into the truth of it. And there were a couple of things that actually I have changed, because of that. But most of it, I really was able to give back to her and to realize that that was just her perception, and that it was more a lesson for her to learn than it was for me. And so that was, it was just a really good experience for me, but to be able to know that I could completely release. And the interesting thing is I actually got a few more followers because of it, because people that had never heard of me actually kind of checked me out, to see what was going on, and even sold a couple of books through that experience. So it turned out, well that way. And then everything else just kind of dissolved. I was able to see her at an event several months later when things had kind of all settled down. And we had a conversation, and there had been a total misunderstanding. And, instead of clarifying the misunderstanding, she just, went with what she thought she knew. And anyway, so we were able to have a really great conversation, and forgiveness was there, and turned out really great.
That's awesome. I love it when you can see something that's hard and you say, what can I learn? Instead of saying, oh my gosh, my life is horrible and how dare people say this about me? Like it's this amazing when you have that perspective. And I love that that's what you can help people to shift and to see that perspective and go from this surface level, oh my goodness, somebody said something about me, this must mean I'm horrible, to, okay, wait, what is true and what is not true? And to hold the truth and to be able to face it. Because so many people would say, oh my goodness, they said that to me, I'm going to avoid them for the rest of my life and carry this grudge for 20 and 30 years, which causes medical problems as well as emotional problems and all the heaviness and the weight. And it stops you from being able to fulfill your purpose and to do what God needs you to do. So I love that you are brave and that you're willing to do those hard things and to face those, to be able to go forward and say, okay, God, I'm going to be humble enough to say, what did I do wrong? What can I change? What is it in me that needs to shift? But at the same time, hold that space for the other person of, you know what, maybe they were going through something hard and this was just something else. And it was a way for that energy to flow out of them in a negative way. But it was something that was inside of them, to be able to recognize that, but also to give them grace and give yourself grace. I feel like there's so many times that things happen or businesses fall apart or people go from one group to another and they just think they know, but they don't really. And if we really get to the heart of it, it really usually turns out that people are good and people are trying to do good. And maybe they made a mortal mistake and maybe that business didn't work out as well as they'd hoped, or maybe that connection didn't happen, or maybe they said something that was taken the wrong way because of someone else's belief system and what they'd experienced in the past. So to be able to really encompass all of that in a Christ-like way of grace and forgiveness and love and, showing up to heal and not to harm. And I love that. So thank you for being a good example for us and sharing that
Thank
story.
you.
I know that was a rough one. Okay. Did you have any moments when you felt like you were going in this direction and then God changed your course and said, no, you're not. Now you're going over here?
That kind of actually happened with the addiction program that I had created. For 2 years, I was doing retreats, and I called them Warrior Camp, and could get these people together. And they were people who had experienced a level of sobriety, but they were just wanting to maintain that, for the rest of their lives, and weren't sure if they could. They still, were worried about, what happens if I get triggered or whatever. And so I hand selected these people, I would interview them before I would actually, allow them to come into the retreat. And so it was always just this wonderful group of people that would support each other. And that's actually, it's interesting, this just kind of, a thought came to me, that's actually where the gratitude call started. Because after the retreats, they wanted to stay connected. And we found that gratitude was the one key piece that allows you to be able to connect with God, connect with yourself, connect with other people. And it kind of, it short circuits any shame or guilt or, anything like that. Gratitude short circuits all of that. And so we started doing the gratitude call to bring people, to keep people together after the retreats. And that was like a preparation. You were talking about preparing. So, starting that gratitude call, that was like 4 years ago that we started the gratitude call. We've only been doing the podcast since March of this year. So, we did the gratitude call for like 3 years before we even started the podcast, before I even started recording it. But there was a moment I had, myself and 3 other facilitators were doing these Warrior Camp retreats. And I mean, we had it down to a science. I mean, it was just like, they were so awesome. And we got together and had this mastermind brainstorm, all these really cool ways how we could expand it. And, it was just going to be awesome. And during that mastermind, it was so amazing. I mean, there was just such good energy. Everything was on such high vibration. And it's like, we are making a difference. This is just like such a perfect thing that we've created. It's working. And everybody that came to the Warrior camps were staying clean. It was so cool. And then it was like the next day or 2 days after that, I got up and I was just like, there was just like this different energy about Warrior Camp. And I loved the facilitators, the other mentors that I was working with. There was like nothing wrong with the camp itself, with what we were doing, any of that. Everything was perfect. But I woke up and I just had a different energy about it. And I was even a little bit nervous about contacting my facilitators because we had such a high vibration. I was like, what are they going to think if I bring everybody together and I share this different feeling that I have? And it was so beautiful. We created just a conference call, and they could tell, just from the invitation, that there was something up, there was something going on. And so we got on the call and I said, hey guys, we had this awesome energy. I know we have this great plan, business plan, everything, and everything is awesome. But I woke up this morning and this is just, there's something different going on. And I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to be anymore. And it was so cool because every single one of them shared, they all had received the same exact feeling that same morning. And so it was just a really beautiful release. We all kind of went our separate ways. We still stay in touch for, different things. And I think if I ever created something, like that again, I would definitely invite them to come back because they're awesome. But it, again, was just a testament of how God has his hand on everything. I have no idea why there was like such amazing energy that night, unless it was just to be able to see the difference in the energy. there was no question, because there was such a difference. It wasn't a dark energy. It was just like different. It was just like, I don't think this is where we're supposed to be. We're all going to be going in different directions. And we all are. Every single one of us is still a really powerful mentor. We've all gone our own direction, done our own thing. So I think Warrior Camp was really just a gestation for all of us.
Oh, that's beautiful. Love it. I had a similar experience where I had planned this like super luxury retreat, and it was like, $1,000 tickets, 4 days, and like total pampering and awesome food and all the stuff. And I had the massage therapist coming, and I had the food people coming, and it was a week before. And I woke up and God was like, "You're canceling now." And I was like, "What?" Holy cow. I've got it all reserved and I can't. And it was the weirdest thing. And it was like I have this deep knowing that I was supposed to let this go.
That's what it was.
And then, you have your ego or your natural man mind that gets in there and says, "But I've like committed all these people and I made all these plans and everybody else is counting on it." And so I had to, make those hard phone calls of like, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling, guys." And every single one was the same type of thing. It was like, "Oh, well, I'm feeling like, it's going to work out better." And we ended up making it a family retreat. And I took my kids, and the other people who were coming to facilitate brought all their kids, because we already had it booked. And we had this moment, and it ended up being a very healing thing. And specifically one lady who really, really needed it. And it gave her the courage to leave a very abusive situation and to finally be free. And it was like, oh my gosh. So God knew that I wasn't about to drop that kind of money on a family retreat, whatever. And he knew that I had to have enough passion into it to be able to pull the right people together to do it. And so all the planning process was all in it. And it was another one of those testaments of, this was for the one. It was for that one person who needed that perfect atmosphere to be able to heal and to see what she needed to do to move forward. And it was the coolest thing to see how he works, even when our mortal brain says, "Oh my gosh, everything just fell apart." So.
And, you mentioned about the ego, because, we don't want to be seen as somebody who's flaky, or we don't want to, back out of our commitments or whatever. And so, the ego could totally have pushed that through, right? You totally could have said, "Well, nope, dang it, we're doing it. We're going to do this because we have this business plan, or we have this, whatever investment, and we're going to do it." That's, I think, where we all sometimes get to a point where we feel like we're beating our head against the wall. It's like, "Oh, God doesn't care about me because look at how hard life is." Well, yeah, if you would listen. He totally gives us shortcuts. But yeah, we have to totally let go of our ego for that.
Yeah. But I find that actually trusting him and saying, "Okay, I'm going to do it even if it's hard." Yeah, it's hard, and we have to have hard conversations, and we have to do hard things. But in that, it actually makes it easier. And he puts us in the right place for the right person. I actually had a similar experience that happened just the other day that I feel like I'm supposed to share, where my son got up and he's like, "I don't feel good. I feel like I'm going to throw up and I'm not well." And my daughter was singing down at Temple Square. And so her choir, just like 3-4 days ago, she was singing out of Temple Square. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm supposed to go see her sing, so I don't know if you're going to be okay." So he stayed home, and we ended up talking through it. And within like an hour, I'm like, "Hey, so do I need to leave you with grandma, or are you going to come?" And he decided that he was going to come. And I had prompting 3 times that morning to go grab a bunch of stuff, and that we were going to just give it away. And we were going to do our light the world thing. We're just going to go by the Spirit. And I was going to teach my son how to follow the Spirit. And so we do this all the time, but it was just this moment. And so we took this bag, and he would reach in and he'd pick something out, and then I'd be like, "Hey, who's it for?" And he'd either close his eyes and he'd think about it, or he'd look around and he'd point at someone, and then we would go give it to him. And it was interesting because we got some, some people kind of confused faces, or, "What's going on?" or "Why are you doing this?" And some people were super grateful. But there was this one moment when he was tired and hungry and kind of laying on the floor and having some time. And then he gets up and he goes to the bag and he gets something out, and he picks out the specific necklace, and he looks over and he says, "It's for her." And I was like, "Okay." And then he was kind of being shy and didn't want to go over and give it to her. And so I did. And it was almost like they got up and they were leaving, and she almost left, and then she stopped for a minute and like, "Hey, this is our time." So we went over there, and I just said, "You've been selected, and Merry Christmas. This is for you." And she just looked at me, and her face brightened up, and she said, "Thank you so much." And then I went back to my son, and I kind of watched her, and she was with her friend, and she would hold up this necklace, and she would look at it, and she would read it, and she would talk to her friend, and I could tell something was going on. I'm like, we did something good there. I'm like, I know you were guided in that moment. And hopefully someday this girl will watch this and realize that it was a blessing for us as much as it was for her. But she came over and she said, "I need to talk to you." And I explained I had to go get my kids, so I had to hurry after the performance. And she just told me really quick, and she said, "I want you to know that message on that necklace is my favorite scripture. And wow. I read it on all the hard days." She said, "Today was one of those hard days. And as I was praying this morning, I asked God to show me that he was there. And this necklace was a sign, my sign from God that he cares about me." And she gave me a hug. And then I said, "Well, you need to hug this little guy," because it was really him. It was, I was teaching him, but I was letting him, and he knew. He's the one who got the prompting. And so she gave him a hug. And on the way home that day, we had, gone all over, walked on the sky bridge over the mall, and we'd gone to the temple and touched the stones. And we'd done all these cool things while we were there. And on the way home, I said, "What was the best part of your day?" And he said, "Mom, it was the hug." And I said, "Did you feel the Spirit?" And he said, "Yeah, I did." And most people don't know this, but he's been struggling with some dark thoughts and mental illness stuff. And so for him to say and to realize that, yes, I can be having my own really hard stuff, and amidst my really hard stuff, I can say, "God, help me help someone else," and he can still use me, even if I'm having a hard day, even if I feel sick, even if I feel like, that things aren't worth it. Even if I'm feeling that, God can still use me, and that he'll take our willing hearts and our open hands, and he'll use us for whatever good he has. And take us, and it's beautiful.
I appreciate you sharing that. I want to just share a couple of thoughts that came to me as you're sharing that story, that, him feeling sick before going to Temple Square, and then really going to intuition. Am I really sick? Do I need to stay home? Or is this just, something that's keeping me from moving forward and doing something that is going to be really profoundly, worthwhile in my life, something that is, possibly even a crossroad, that, something that he'll be able to go back to, an anchor that he'll be able to go back to, that God really does speak through me. And we experience those times all the time where, the lady on my gratitude call this morning, she said that she was thinking about not getting on the call, and she ended up getting on the call, and it was like the transformational part of the call this morning was her. And I think a lot of times we let those little discomforts, and even fear of stepping out, stop us from being the best that we can be, and actually being a key catalyst for someone. The other thought that came to me is when you said he was kind of like tired and on the floor and, a little bit cranky or whatever. A lot of times when we are in like production mode, we're working, we feel like we're doing good, everything, we are doing good, but it's when we get in our low moments, when we kind of have to totally give up, because the mind and the body are depleted, then we really have to let the spirit and the heart take over. And that's when God can really talk to us and help us beyond what we physically are capable of. So that's a beautiful example of both of those principles.
Yeah, we talked about that afterwards. I said, well, because I'm trying to teach them that when they feel sick or they don't want to go to school, like, hey, you've got the Holy Ghost, you have the Spirit, you figure out, do I just not want to go, or am I good enough that I could go? Am I just feeling I shouldn't? And it was that interesting, because that morning I had asked him, and his brother was home too, and he said, "I'm supposed to stay home." And his brother decided to go to school when they both checked in and they knew what they were supposed to do. And I told him, I said, well, I could say, oh, but you've missed too much school, you really need to go. It's, yeah, you have a sore throat, your tummy ache will go away, whatever, just go. And I could have pushed him out, but instead we chose to say, hey, am I supposed to be here today? And so it was really cool because he's learning to understand that. He's learning to say, okay, I'm listening to my body. And I'll be like, hey, what does your body need? He's like, I need water, or I need food, or I need a nap, or he'll like listen and he'll understand. And it's really cool to see, you know, then we recognize afterwards, obviously, that, yeah, God put, you know what, maybe God gave you a tummy ache, so you'd have a reason why you felt like you needed to stay home. But then he also took it away.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. And how wonderful, what a wonderful mom to teach them that and then honor what they receive.
Yeah, and that's been awesome. Really tricky. So like even yesterday, you were talking about being depleted. And I was supposed to be re-editing my books because I've got a distributor. And so I'm like, hey, I've got to get this ready and it's got to get going. And it's been like thing after thing has been stopping me from getting it done. And I'm like, oh. So I had this whole plan. I'm like, I'm sticking to the plan no matter what. And I had it written down. You know, I'm going to go work on it for this hour. And then I'm going to stop and play a game with the kid who's at home. And then we're going to do this. I had the whole plan. And then I just got overwhelmed by this feeling of I am so tired, like physically, mentally exhausted. My brain will not function and all this stuff. And I said to my kids, I said, I feel like we should have nap time for an hour and then we'll go to the plan. And then like not 2 minutes later, my daughter texts me from the high school and she says, Mom, I really feel like you need to sleep today. #light the world. And I was like, I just texted her back and I was like, thank you for the second witness. Then I need a nap. And so I'm like, hey, you guys, you know, read your books. I'm going to lay on the couch and I'm going to sleep for an hour. And apparently I was so out of it. Like the alarm went off. They said it went off for 5 minutes and you were still sleeping. So we just turned it off. So 2.5 hours later, I like woke up and it was like instant. And like, I was awake because we're still at school. They were playing happily. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then I could like, it just flowed. And then I could work on the book. And I got the first one almost all the way fixed. And I'm like, okay, sometimes just, you know, be still, know I'm God, and trust me that if you rest, you're still going to be able to accomplish what you need. Because if you're trying to accomplish it and you're depleted, then it's going to take you 40 times as long and your quality of work is going to be down because you're not at the highest capacity of functioning.
Yeah, very true. Thank you.
All right, so share a time with us when it might have looked like you failed to the world and what you learned from it.
Might have looked like I failed to the world, but learned from it. Let's go on to the next question. We'll come back to that one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Nothing like really came immediately. So
no, actually that's the last question, except for just whatever has come to me in the process. And I feel like maybe you have kind of a different situation. You said your husband was disabled and you're trying to hold everything together and work it. Can you speak to that in any way of what is that like for you? I don't know what level of caregiving you have to do, or if it's just financially supporting or, you know, mentally, physically, what he can do. But I feel like somebody needs to hear that.
Okay.
How do you get through that?
Yeah. It has been, he's been disabled for 23 years. He had a tumor on his spinal cord between his shoulder blades. And so, and it was right attached to the spinal cord. So there was some nerve damage that it had done. It was a benign tumor, but it was quite large, probably about the size of a grapefruit. And so, or maybe just a little smaller, small grapefruit. And so it had pressed his spinal cord flat. And the doctor was actually like amazed that he could walk, because there was just his spinal cord was ribbon thin in that area. So they removed the tumor. They were able to get all of it. It hasn't grown back. And those types of tumors actually do have a tendency to grow back, and his hasn't. So we're really super grateful for that. When he went into surgery, the doctor said, don't expect to walk. And so I didn't even realize. I was in the waiting room while he was in his surgery, and the doctor came out and he said, well, I tickled his foot and his toe moved. You know, he like jerked his toe. He wasn't quite awake yet, you know, but he did that. And I let out this big, huge sigh of relief. And I hadn't even realized I know, I hadn't even realized I'd been holding my breath, but I think I'd been holding my breath for like 2 weeks while we waited for the surgery, after the diagnosis. And anyway, so he was able to walk. He still can walk. He has deteriorated just a little bit, since then. He has a harder time like lifting his left leg, and especially if it's cold or if he's tired, he has a really hard time. Sometimes he trips, he falls occasionally. But he can get around, he can do quite a bit, but he has to rest a lot. The nerve damage, he also has arthritis, and so he's got a lot of pain on a constant basis. He has nerve pain, like in his feet and his legs and everything. And so he's just, but the thing that I have really just been so grateful for is that he has a positive attitude. He always has kept his sense of humor. He's a happy guy to be around. And my kids love him. When he became disabled, I wasn't even pregnant with my last daughter yet. So she's 22. And so she was born after the surgery. And he's been with my kids all of that time. And he's such a great dad. And I was able to work, and he would be home with the kids. And I did work from home at part of that. And I also worked, out in corporate America for part of that as well. And so I think that the biggest thing that I've really gained from this whole situation is gratitude, just gratitude to God that he's been able to maintain that. Well, first of all, that he can walk, and then also that he's been able to maintain his good, positive attitude, his sense of humor, his everybody that knows Clint loves him. And also that I've been blessed to be able to have opportunities come up that gave us the opportunity to maintain our financial position where we are, even though his Social Security check probably just pays the house payment and, maybe the gas, like for the vehicles, and everything else has to come from something that I do. And I'm just really grateful that we have the dynamic that we do, that he's very supportive of everything that I do, and that I'm okay, that I actually thrive on entrepreneurship, and, I want to be giving value to the world in a different way than, just being a mom and a stay-at-home mom or whatever. And so I just feel like, again, God prepared me for this situation. He prepared Clint to have a wife, and kids who are perfect for our situation. And I really do believe that in every circumstance, there is gratitude. So that's, if there is someone who is hearing this, my story, and relating to it a little bit, if you haven't been able to find gratitude within the situation, I encourage you to do it. To not find gratitude because of this, or like in spite of the situation, but to find gratitude because of the situation. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that this is my life. This is the perfect life for me. Everything has been orchestrated and I love it. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I can relate in some levels, but it's important also to realize, if you're in that situation, that you can say, you know what, the gratitude can be, I'm grateful I have the strength to work. I'm grateful that I have that eternal perspective that, yes, it's part of God's plan. And maybe part of your purpose is to help support him through his trial.
Oh, yeah.
I like to imagine
Definitely.
it too, as, if we were all in heaven and there's this whole pile of challenges, you'll always pick out your own, that type of thing.
Yeah.
What if your whole family was gathered around that pile of challenges? And they said, okay, you need to learn patience. You need to learn faith. You're going to have to experience cancer, or you're going to have diabetes. You're going to have to lose a kid, or whatever. And what if your husband was the one who stood up and he said, I'll take the tumor because I don't want you guys to have it. And so it allows us to see these people in our lives who maybe are struggling, who feel like they might be a burden on us, and to see them as, you know what? Maybe you are the strongest one who was willing to stand up and say, you know what? I'm going to take that because I want to help my family. And maybe in that, of that cancer diagnosis or that child with disabilities or whatever is happening, that you're able to say, you know what, maybe in heaven we stood up and said, yep, I'll stand by you. I will stand by you and I will be your helpmeet and I will strengthen and help you through yours. And yes, maybe that means I have to work harder. Maybe that means I have to be gone more than I'd like to be. But I'm going to trust, you know, that God's going to give me the strength and hopefully give you the strength that we can help each other in whatever challenges may come. Because we never know. You know, from day to day, we don't know what's going to happen and how long we'll have our loved ones, or if they'll be able to function the way they are, or God will take them a different direction. Yeah. But to be able to say, you know what, we're in it forever together. Yeah. And I'm going to help you and you're going to help me. And we're all going to rely on the Lord because we got to know we can't do it on our own.
Yeah. And we don't know, you know, what our future holds. God knows, though. Clint was a bodybuilder when he and I first met. And so, you know, for him to have gone from that, you know, to being disabled, it was a huge trial for him. And we don't know what is in our future. And so, you know, to really get to a point where we know that we're okay, that we're more than okay, we're worthy of God's blessings, that He has everything figured out. And if we'll just ask and listen and obey, trust, you know, what the direction that He's taking us, we all have the opportunity to have a happy, fulfilling life, regardless of what our circumstances are.
That's beautiful. I love it. Thank you. Okay. Did you think of any time when you looked like you failed to the world?
Well, I think that probably covered it.
Yeah, that's good. I want to make sure I give you the chance if you had something else come up.
As I was sharing it, I was like, you know what, that could definitely appear to be a failure, you know, to the world. That, you know, if you're on the path of having, you know, strapping physical health and you're struck down, that could definitely appear to be a failure. And it's not just making the most of it. It's like creating a wonderful life within it, not in spite of it, but within it.
Yeah, I think it was Meg Johnson. Do you know who she is?
I don't think so.
Okay, so she was running with her husband and she literally ran off a cliff unintentionally.
Oh, wow.
And she's been paralyzed ever since. But her tagline is, when life gets hard, just keep on rolling. And she does keynotes in her wheelchair. And she talks about how, you know what, maybe this is exactly the trial that you needed in order to reach the people you needed to reach, in order to fulfill your purpose. You needed to be in a wheelchair to do what you were here to do and to touch who you were here to touch. Or, you know, you needed to be disabled. I know I've hurt my foot numerous times and I've been laid up in bed, and it was because God needed me to slow down and stop long enough to write that book or create that thing. And I'm like, okay, we'll just trust you every day.
Yeah, I do believe that everything is for our purpose and it's all for our good.
Definitely. Do you have any final thoughts that have come to you that you want to share?
I would love to invite anybody who has had a struggle finding gratitude within your circumstances to join my gratitude call, whether that's just listening on the podcast or joining live. It is totally life-changing, and every call is intuitive. It's led by God. So that's just the last thought that I would share, is there's a free service for you if you're in that space where you just need to find gratitude.
That's beautiful. I love that. And now tell us about your GPS box really quick. And I know you have a special offer for our people who've listened to your interview. Go ahead and share that.
Yeah. So my daily GPS, I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's like the tool that I go to every morning to connect with God, to find out what my next step is. It's really my direction finder for the day. And it also is a really great place for me to get grounded, to just, feel like in that space of gratitude, and getting those individual instructions from God of what's next. I just created, it's just brand new live on my website, something that I call the Daily GPS Box. And there's 3 key components. There's a couple of other little gifts in there too, but there's the Daily GPS 30-day planner. And so that has all the different steps of the GPS, and it prompts you of, what to do, and a place to record all of your inspiration, all your inspired next steps, and the inspiration that you receive. You also get a prayer pillow. And these prayer pillows, this is something that I started doing about 3 months ago. I created a prayer pillow for myself because my office floor is like a hard floor. And I literally was getting calluses on my knees because I would pray, as part of my daily GPS on my knees. And I thought, I gotta have a pillow. And so I created a pillow for myself. And now I see that pillow in my chair every day. And if I forgot to do my daily GPS, then it would definitely be a reminder for me to do that. And they're all different. Every single one is uniquely created specifically for you. And I make them. And so that's included. So you've got your GPS planner and the prayer pillow, and then a course that is called the Daily GPS. And I call it the 1 Critical Habit to Success. So it teaches you how to do the daily GPS. You get a PDF, there's a video, there's actually a couple videos, and just instructions on how to do that. Normally that is $97 on my website, but if you are hearing this through the Consecrated Life, then you get it for half price. And so I wrote the coupon code down so I won't forget. The coupon code is GPS Box 50, all caps, GPS BOX 50, and you'll get 50% off of it if you go to my website, wylenebenson.com, and find it through there.
Beautiful. Is that the best way for people to contact you, is through the website?
That would probably be, or on my on Facebook, through my Facebook group, Breakthrough with Gratitude. That would be a great place to connect with me as well. But yeah, there's a contact page on wylenebenson.com as well. And I guess there is actually a landing page for that GPS box. You're going to post that, right?
Yeah, we can post it in the comments.
Okay, awesome. But yeah, you can find all that on my website, wylenebenson.com, and contact me there.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your joy and the ways that you follow God, because I'm sure it has been a blessing to many others as it has been to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, friend. I'll see you later.
Thank you.